Policy Analysis, the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act, and Confederate named military assets. In the South, there are several military installations named after Confederate officers. Most notably, Army bases are named for Confederate officers. The most notable being Fort Hood, Fort Polk, Camp Beauregard, Fort Benning, Fort Gordon, and Fort Bragg. The histories of military installations with Confederate names. From the early part of the 20th century until World War II, the United States Army purchased cheap land in the South to build bases. Local committees were tasked with coming up with the military installation names. These committees supported lost cause principle. In recent years, the names of these military installations have came under scrutiny. Focus on these military base names have been heightened since the 2015 Charleston church shooting, and again in 2020 after the death of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department. What is the National Defense Authorization Act? Since 1961, the National Defense Authorization Act is the yearly funding appropriation for the Department of Defense. It allows for project funding, upgrading, and deregulation for the DoD. The National Defense Authorization Act deals with issues from soldier pay to new weapon systems to fitness and readiness tests. 2021 was a significant year for the National Defense Authorization Act. Significant uniform changes, permitting ethnic hairstyles and changing uniforms, greater funding to cybersecurity assets, and finally, most notably, changing the names of Confederate assets and memorials supported by the Department of Defense. The significance of changing Confederate-named Department of Defense assets. Maintaining Confederate-named Department of Defense assets discredits the service and legacy of African Americans, especially maintaining military and Army bases named after Confederate officers. African Americans make up 21% of active duty Army. The history of African Americans in military service is longer than that of lost cause. Spanning from the Revolutionary War to modern times, African Americans continue to serve in the military. Specifically, analyzing Army history, African Americans were first notable in their service during the Civil War. The contributions of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment were noteworthy. The first Black Medal of Honor recipient, Sergeant William Carney, served in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. In World War I, African American soldiers continued to serve their country with gallantry. The 369th Infantry Regiment was the first all-black unit to see combat overseas in France during World War I. The 369th Infantry Regiment was also known as the Harlem Hellfighters. In World War II, African American soldiers continued to break barriers. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, passed Executive Order 8802, the prohibition of discrimination in the defense industry. Individuals were no longer discriminated based on race, creed, or color. African Americans served in the Army in the 761st Tank Unit, Tuskegee Airmen, and the 320th Balloon Brigade. The 2021 National Defense Authorization Act includes rhetoric that creates a committee with the mission of gathering input from local communities, developing an implementation plan for reassessing and removing symbols, displays, monuments, and paraphernalia that commemorate the Confederacy, and submitting it to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee by October 2022. Army base name changes and other changes will likely be implemented in 2024. The finalized committee was given the name the Commission on the Naming of Items of the U.S. Department of Defense that commemorate the Confederate States of America or any person who served voluntarily with the Confederate States of America. Individuals were selected by Senator Jack Reed, Senator Jim Inphone, Senator Adam Smith, and Senator Mike Rogers. The committee comprises of Lieutenant General Thomas Boswick, who was formerly the commanding general of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and was the first West Point African-American graduate to serve at that position. The next selection for the committee was Lonnie G. Bunch, the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian, a professional historian who oversees 19 museums, 21 libraries, the National Zoo, research centers, and several education units. The last two committee selections were Jerry Buchanan, a private business owner from Tulsa and enlisted in the Army, and Representative Austin Scott, who has served on the House Armed Service Committee since 2010. In October of 2022, the selections and accessions will be made and submitted by the committee. Army bases in the South will have new names. I find it excellent that the committee includes an African American historian, experience in public history and public understanding, to implement change in these Army bases, DoD assets, and the communities that surround them.